Well, Jake, appreciate you coming on the program, sir.
Not a problem. I appreciate coming on NRA News whenever I had the chance.
Well, we're glad to have you. Saw the story out of Connecticut, where the National Shooting Sports Foundation is headquartered, and it looks like authorities there in Bridgeport, Connecticut, want to do something that, frankly, I don't think is going to make a difference in terms of public safety. They want to hold a gun buyback program.
Yes, I guess they don't agree with these numerous studies and research that has proven that gun buybacks do nothing to decrease crime. As you guys know, I mean, most people are going to be bringing in firearms that they don't want anymore, that may not function correctly, just to get a gift card or get some money. So that's not really going to help the crime rate when the criminals aren't bringing back guns.
Absolutely. You know, and it was interesting. The local paper there, I thought, did a decent job in reporting the story. They even talked to Garen Winnemute, who is anti-gun researcher out in California, and I love this quote. He said that he supports these buybacks even if there's no proof that they reduce crime rates. And here's what the anti-gun activist has to say. Quote, there is a large amount of research that ended 8 to 10 years ago that showed there wasn't any impact of gun buybacks on crime rates. The number of guns turned in was always a very small percentage of guns in the community, and a large percentage of guns turned in were not of working order and not the type generally used in crime. So when the anti-gunners say, it doesn't really work, but we still support it, I mean, this isn't really about public safety anymore. This is really just sending an anti-gun message, it seems.
Yes, that's correct. They don't want to admit that it doesn't work. Well, maybe he did a little bit here that it doesn't work, but they don't like to admit failure when something doesn't work. Very similar to ballistics imaging in New York and Maryland, where, you know, you're just hurting and infringing on law-abiding citizens. It means that it's not going to solve any crimes because criminals aren't legally purchasing their guns. But the doctor later on in that article had an even better quote, I thought, that I underlined. It said that the doctor said there are gun buyback programs that have been successful in other countries. In Australia, where the gun buyback program's participation was mandatory. I don't think that's a gun buyback program if it's mandatory.
No.
I believe that's gun confiscation, which I think we're all trying to fight and make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Boy, how about that? I mean, when you're trying to compare the gun confiscations in Australia to a gun buyback program, I mean, that, you know, at that point, really, you're just one step away from suggesting, well, why don't we just make these programs mandatory and see if that helps?
He also mentioned that a program in Brazil was very successful. Anyone that gets the NRA publications remembers seeing the bulldozer drive over the piles of firearms that were, I guess, turned in a buyback in Brazil.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, and now I guess one of the supporters of the local gun buybacks in Connecticut, they're not raising a lot of money for these buybacks because they don't work. And so his response is, well, maybe we'll see if we can get some federal help, some federal money for a buyback program. Now, Jake, it's been almost a decade since Housing and Urban Development cut off funds for buyback programs. Are you guys concerned at all that under the Obama administration we could see a return to the federal expenditures for gun buybacks?
Well, I can't guarantee what they're going to be spending money for or wasting money for in Washington, D.C. nowadays. You know, they could put it back in for gun buybacks. But, you know, we run a program which would be much more helpful and much more successful called Don't Lie for the Other Guy, which tries to cut down on straw purchasing and tries to cut down on illegal purchases and firearms entering into the community through those means. But, you know, we can't seem to get any funding for a program that has shown success in the past. They would rather waste taxpayer dollars on doing gun buybacks, which have no impact. I mean, how about they use some of that money to invest in law enforcement and increase law enforcement on the streets, which is the only proven way to cut down on crime in some of these cities.
Oh, come on. That's too much common sense. We've got guns to demonize.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe we should do an automobile buyback because, you know, the number of car accidents on Route 95 here in Connecticut continues to go up as well.
I will offer $300 for anybody wanting to turn in their 65 Mustang.
That's not a bad deal.
There you go. Hey, Jake, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. It's always a real pleasure to get a chance to talk with you.
I appreciate it, Cam. Have a good day.
You too, sir. Jake McGuigan, Director of Government Relations for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, joining us here on NRAnews.com.